Hi everyone and welcome to episode 11 of our ConfigMas 2022. My name is Johan and in this demo you will learn how to set up pfSense as a virtual router for your Lab VMs. This is the second and final video in our series on using virtual routers for Lab VMs. And that means demo time. The scenario is the same as in the previous video when you learn how to use Windows Server 2019 as a router. This time we'll be using pfSense instead. The first thing we will do is set up a virtual machine named Gateway 01. That one will have 3 different network cards. One network card that is connected to the network I use for internet access. The second network card is going to be for the New York network, and the third one is going to be for Chicago. Then I also have a domain controller already. This domain controller is part of the New York network. So this one has an IP address on the 192.168.1 network. And then I have PC number 1, which is a client in the Chicago network, having an IP address of starting with 192.168 and 2. And we're going to use this router to provide access in between these machines, but also to give them access to internet through that same router. The reason we picked pfSense for this scenario is that it actually has many more features than Windows Server 2019. It's simply a better router for a lab and test environment. So let's get building. Now, first of all, I do have a blog post that I posted a few years back that go through and step-by-step guide take you through the process, similar to what I will do in this video here. There is a download link here, and even though it says version 2.6 here, when you click the download link, it will actually show you all different versions. What we found recently is that the 2.6 version, which is the latest stable release, sometimes doesn't play too nice with Hyper-V. We simply see poor performance when using that version. So what I recommend is this version here. 2.5.2. In my environment, I have downloaded this, archived and extracted it. So I'm going to go to one of my Hyper-V hosts. Going to use the same one as last time, Rogue 11. And if you check my ISO folder here, this is where I've downloaded that ISO file. Now I'm going to create a virtual machine. I'm going to give it a GW01 name, followed by pfSense. I'm going to store it in my VMs folder. And I'm going to use a generation 1 VM because I found over the years that often plays more nicely with pfSense. Give it a bit of memory. Doesn't need much in a lab. And I'm going to connect one of the network cards to my external switch. So, like the video from yesterday, we have 3 virtual switches in this environment, one for internet, one for New York, and one for Chicago. And the external one is for internet. Gonna give it a bit of a hard drive. Doesn't need much. And I'm gonna configure it to install from that ISO that I downloaded here. This one. Before power on the virtual machine, I'm gonna give it another CPU. And I'm gonna give it 2 more network cards. So add hardware, network card, and I'm gonna add in the New York network, and I'm gonna add in the Chicago network. So now I have 3 network adapters in this one. One for internet, one for New York, and one for Chicago. And I'm gonna click OK. Perfect. Now, it does make sense to make a note of the MAC addresses for each adapter. So the thing is, if I would open up PowerShell and check the status of the network cards, give it the VM name, you will find that they are 0. And that's because I haven't yet booted the VM, so it hasn't assigned any MAC address to these adapters. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to power it on real quick, and then turn it off right away. And now if I go back and check this one, same command, you will see that now we have MAC addresses for this one. So we simply keep this as a little documentation over the network cards. And now we can go ahead and run through the installer. So power on. The initial setup of a pfSense router is like pretty much any other Unix or Linux distribution. pfSense is a FreeBSD sort of version, so it's a Unix OS, but it's very, very similar in setup. Once you have that initial setup going, pfSense offers a really nice web interface also where you can do the remaining configuration. Gonna accept this and install pfSense. Default keyboard map is just fine, and we're gonna use the default partitioning layout. Proceed with installation, thank you, and default this selection as well. I'm gonna select the disk by pressing space, and then hit enter for OK. Are you sure? Yes, I am. And now pfSense will be installed on this disk. I don't need any additional settings for now, so I'm going to click enter on this one to select no. And before rebooting, I'm going to go ahead and eject the ISO file. And then hit space for reboot. I don't need any VLANs at the moment, so I'm going to click N and enter. And I'm going to use pfSense automatic detection for the WAN interface. In this case, pfSense did not detect my external network. It reported it as down up here. I didn't notice that until now. But if I check my network adapters, they're certainly up and running. So I'm just going to pick the interface manually, and we'll deal with that later. Going back to my little documentation, my external card was B14, and B14 is HN0. So I'm going to pick that one. And I'm going to use one or the other for the LAN mode. And then this one as well. Looks pretty good to me. Hit OK. Before doing the remaining configuration in the web portal, I'm going to assign a few IP addresses on this one. So press 2 in the menu. I'm going to pick my LAN interface number 2. And I'm going to give it this IP address. And a net mask of 24. And press enter. Enter for this one. No DHCP server. And I'll be using HTTP for now as the protocol for the web portal or the web configurator. Perfect. Now I can go ahead and do the remaining configuration from the web portal. We're going to head over to DC01. I'm going to use that as a client for now to access this web portal. Going to open Edge and navigate to that IP address. The default admin is admin in pfSense with the password of pfSense. And now I can go ahead and go through the initial wizard here. Going to click next Next on this one, hostname GW01, domain, external DNS, and next. Time server is just fine, but I'm gonna change the time zone to Chicago. The WAN interface is good as it is. It will get an IP address from my internet router. But in the bottom here, since everything is internal to my lab, I can go ahead and clear this checkbox here and then click next. Now we do the LAN interface, the IP address we configured earlier. Gonna give it a better password than pfSense. And I'm gonna hit reload. Now if I go to my interfaces, I'm just gonna change the LAN adapter to New York. And click save. Now, if all goes well, I should have routing to internet from the New York network, but not yet for the Chicago network. So DC1, which is in New York, has an IP address of this. Let's see if I can ping anything on internet. That looks pretty good to me. Now, if I go to my other virtual machine, PC number 1 here, which is in the Chicago location, that one should not have access yet. Check this one. Type in config, should be my 2 network. If I try to ping internet, it will not work. So let's go and add this network to the router. Go back to the portal here. And go back to my interfaces. Opt 1, that was the Chicago network, so I'm going to name it Chicago. I'm going to enable the interface. And I'm going to give it a static IPv4 address. Down here, I'm going to give it 2.1. That was the default gateway for my Chicago client. And this is on a 24 network. Or subnet mask. Click Save. And apply. Going to head over to my firewall settings. Click Rules. I'm going to show you the New York one, looking like this, allowing traffic. And I'm going to go to Chicago one, not yet allowing any traffic. So I need to do that. So I'm going to add in a rule. It's going to be pass. It's going to be for this interface. And in this case, I'm going to add one rule for IPv4 and one for IPv6. So start with IPv4, any protocol, and the source is going to be the Chicago network. Save that one, and add another rule. Again pass, again Chicago, this time IPv6. I prefer to have them separately like this. And again, the source is going to be ChicagoNet. Then I go ahead and save them, and then apply the changes. I'm going to go to PC number 1. Try to ping internet now. And sure enough, I have internet access. Now I need to verify that I can access DC01. And sure enough, I have routing in between those networks as well. So that's how you set up a pfSense router for this scenario again, where we have two different networks, where we want to be able to route in between them, but also make sure they have internet access without exposing these virtual machines out on the external card of your Hyper-V host. That's all for today. I hope to see you again tomorrow for another video. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.